Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that takes place after dark. And you know what else happens after dark? That's when the sex is. I'm Alex.
Welcome to Sex After Sex, where sex is sex, and I'm Watch the Sex. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about Riverdale Season 7, Episode 3, Chapter 120, Sex Education.
Ooh, boy, I'm feeling steamy.
Yeah, well, and I learned a lot watching this episode, I gotta say. Now, before we get into it, and of course we're going to go full-on spoilers for the whole episode, brief bit of recap of what you need to know leading into this episode. We are fully back in the 1950s, 1955. To be precise, all of the former adults are now teens again, going to their junior year of high school. And the big cliffhanger at the end of the last episode is that Ethel, as we find out at the beginning of this episode, may or may not have murdered her own parents, bringing a little bit of the old Riverdale darkness to this otherwise more innocent time. Now, also working against the innocent time of it all is that we have a couple of closeted characters here. Specifically, Kevin is dating Betty. They are an all-American couple. Betty's just getting hornier and hornier as things go, and she really wants to get with Kevin.
Dangerously horny. Honestly,
well,
you can see worrisome. Horn Betty.
Yeah,
Dark
she
Betty's
has like
over.
you can see like her horny levels kind of going up further, like a thermometer.
Don't shame her for exploring herself and what she wants to accomplish in life.
No, I'm saying
no
this.
shaming.
Her horny levels are dangerous, respectfully. Is that better?
Yeah,
Thank you. Put some
dangerous to
respect
herself.
Okay.
Put some respect on it.
Yes.
Mass respect.
Anyway, Betty doesn't understand what's wrong with Kevin. Kevin, of course, as we know, is gay, and he has struck up a friendship and very light flirtation with a new student named Clay Walker. On the other end of the school, we've got Cheryl Blossom, who is even more closeted than Kevin is. She is rejecting it partially due to her family that is very repressive for her. And she clearly has some interested feelings on Toni Topaz, who isn't exactly out and proud, but certainly is mostly as out and proud as you can be in the 1950s. She is part,
I would argue, though, I don't know, is closeted the right term for Cheryl? I feel like she has to go on a self-discovery here. I feel like she doesn't know what's happening with her, and she seems more lost than anything.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a fair way of saying it. Whatever it is, she has a lot of confusing feelings going on. Also, the fact that she is Cheryl Blossom and Toni Topaz is a greaser. She hates greasers, specifically Fangs Fogarty, who is hooking up with our new Midge 2.0. A couple of other relationships we can talk about. Archie is more innocent in this time period and is really going after the new Hollywood it girl who's moved to town, Veronica. Veronica really hurt him in the last episode and didn't exactly reject her at the end of the sock hop dance, but certainly chose to go in another direction. At the same time, some feelings seem to be bubbling up between Betty and Archie, which is obviously forbidden for a couple of reasons, not least of which that Betty is with Kevin, but also they're best friends. They grew up across from each other, so they also don't quite understand what's happening, though Betty certainly seems to understand a lot more than he does. We've also got Julian Blossom, who is Cheryl's brother back in the 1950s. He's going after Veronica hard. Veronica don't like Julian that much. No. And meanwhile, we've got a couple of other repressive forces happening in the adult side of things. Specifically, we got Dr. Werthers, who is, I don't know, we still don't know what his job is other than hanging out in Principal Featherhead's office, but he's certainly a guy who seems to advise Principal Featherhead, who dug into Cheryl about any possible lesbianism going on at the end of last week's episode. We've also got Miss Bell, she's blameless. Love her. Nothing wrong with Miss Bell.
It's weird that she's hanging out with those other two dudes in a room. All of those three, that scene of them in the room, I was like, this is the part I don't. This feels more.
And we've got two other parents we should probably talk about here who are Hal and Alice, who host a show at WRIV. I always forget the call sign for the TV station, but they are there. We're definitely going to get into some theories and talk about them because I got some stuff I got to talk about here.
Suspect.
Yes. So we'll talk more about them later. And we get to catch up with another parent that's been mentioned previously, but specifically Sheriff Kevin Keller's dad shows up again this episode. So we get to see a little bit of him. So there you go. There's probably some other things we need to talk about, but that's the big thing, let's do this. I just want to get this out of the way right up front because otherwise Pete is going to literally die if we talk about anything else. Pete, I'm going to turn it over to you. Open mic sesh.
Oh, no.
Just like at the dark room. Take it away.
Well, what's
Give
nice
us your
is...
Toni lecture. Toni style sexy lecture.
No.
If you can rub yourself a little bit while you do this, that would be appreciated.
I'd appreciate it.
Whoa, what the fuck? That just happened?
I also have dangerous levels of horny, respectfully.
Oh my God, what is happening? Don't ruin my time. All right, so first off, this might be it. I don't know if I'm going to get any more Bughead action, but this kiss was absolutely magical. The sparks were flying all over the place. It was a nice little nod to the fans. It was a nice little opportunity to kind of be like, wow, of all the kisses, that one was the best. And, sparks flew all over the place, and I was immediately heard afterwards that there doesn't seem to be any ramifications from that clearly magical kiss. It seems like Betty completely forgot about it, but I'm holding out hope because it happened, and it was glorious. Bughead forever, and I'm fingers crossed. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Although the way things are going, it probably won't be. But it was a great couple of seconds there that filled me with hope.
Nice. Classic P response. I love it, but it's gone. I love it. It's perfect, but I'm not ever going to see it again. Sorry, Alex.
No, I was just going to give a little context here. I wanted to let Pete go because otherwise he'd be interrupting me a million times. But just
exactly.
To get, not the full storyline. I know how this works. We've worked together for a while. Just to give some context here, the part of the main plot ends up with all the kids at a makeout party arranged by Veronica. They play a game of post office where the girls have to kiss the guys and the couples.
Which was a callback to before when it was the Keys, where it was a much more advanced kind of party sexually.
Well, that was also Cheryl throwing the key party.
Oh, it was? Oh, yes. My bad. Ooh, my memory.
I was curious if it was going to turn out the same way. And frankly, I think all things said, this post office party was much more surprising and more fun than the key party, which was like, great, all the couples ended up with exactly what we thought they were going to end up with.
They did that a little bit, but there were still some fun twists and turns in this party. And post office, a game we all play.
Yeah, absolutely. I play that every time I go to the post office. So what happens here, just to set up this specific thing, is that Jughead, who doesn't want to go to the party initially, goes there to effectively avoid being accessory to murder.
Prosecution. He's at a kissing sex party to avoid prosecution.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes there, and then he gets Betty. They introduce each other to each other. They kiss. And then they part. And things, like Peter saying, end up in a very different place by the end of the episode. But I agree. It was a very nice moment.
Nice.
I thought it was played very interestingly because my takeaway from it, if we want to talk about this for a moment, is I do think Betty didn't get anything from it. But Jughead, the way that Cole Sprouse played it, there was something there. Like, he was definitely playing it as there is something there. And I think that points to what we've talked about a lot of this season. You know, there's been a lot of pushback about, like, whatever, this doesn't matter. This is in the 1950s. And we've talked on the podcast about this all matters. This is the same characters.
Yeah.
They are just, they have different memories that are behaving in a different way, but that emotional memory is still there. Jughead might be closer to it because of events that we've seen where he is remembering something, but something like that scene, yes, it's fan service, but at the same time, this whole show is fan service. Like, it's nonstop fan service for
Whoa,
7 seasons. No, but it is.
Okay.
Like, it legitimately, this is a dark riff on Archie comics. It does not work if you are not, in some sense, a fan of Archie comics. Like, it literally, that is the ground that this show is based on.
I'm not a fan of Archie comics, and I'm having a good time with this show.
Whether you're familiar, that's my point. Okay. Like, you need to understand this stuff to understand this stuff, and that's the same thing with the point we're in now. To have Betty and Jughead kiss, that means something to fans of Bughead because it is built into the fabric of the show.
I just wanted one correction that you were just factually wrong about. It did affect Betty, so how dare you? Okay, whether or not she's aware of it yet, you know what I mean? But you can't just make that call.
The Betty translator has entered the chat.
Time will tell. But how dare you? Because I think the magic of that kiss was palpable on both ends, and I think maybe changed some things. So
disagree, but we all have our own things. I do want to throw out there, though, I think there was actually a bigger Bughead moment in the episode that we haven't talked about than the kiss, which is when they narrowly miss each other going into Ethel's house.
Yes.
And that, to me...
Agree.
But also them coming into their kind of like, we solve crimes, we're kind of sleuths.
That's what I'm saying. So this moment is Betty is sent over to Ethel's house to get some clothes and ends up finding a human sexuality text that spurs on a lot of the action of the episode. Jughead is in there right before trying to get a picture that Ethel drew of shoving her own parents into a meat grinder, as well as while he's there.
Which we've all done.
He discovers a comic book that is very similar to what happened, or at least what Ethel says happened to her parents, which, again, we'll probably talk about in a moment. But the way that it works is there's this anticipation, because you know they're both going to the house, of, oh, are we going to get Betty and Jughead teaming up on an investigation again? And again, this is these moments that, like, it wouldn't work if we hadn't seen the show, but there is that nervous energy there of, ooh, we watched several seasons of them working together on mysteries. Is that going to happen? Or they narrowly miss each other? I thought that was a fun way to play that, to lay our expectations.
Agreed.
And I also think, like, their relationship to me has always been about that. Like, they were very much, and I talked about this a lot, like, their love and their passion for each other was through their activities as these, like, investigation. And I'm not diminishing it in any way, but I think that is a lot of what their connection was. And it was sort of a more mature relationship in that way, where it was like, we're passionate for each other, but we're also sort of coworkers in a way.
Just one correction for you, Justin. Don't pretend to understand the passion of another person's relationship.
Pete does.
They have for each other wasn't just job related. It was souls connecting and realizing that, like, somebody accepting their dark side or their full self is a big deal, and it's nice to be seen. So, don't try to diminish another relationship or say, put anything unless you're in it. My point.
Not diminishing it, offering my commentary. And one correction for you, like, when they did kiss, I remember a third bearded face entering the close-up of their kiss, and it was crazy that you somehow got your mouth in there to kiss them together.
While they were kissing, it's impressive.
The triple kiss,
yeah.
Pete, I appreciate that you also are at dangerous levels of horny, respectfully. So there you go.
That's true.
Here, one last thing I'll say, and this is 100% not to hurt anybody's feelings on this podcast or anything, but I do think, despite these moments that we're starting out and talking about here, Bughead is not the romantic story that they're telling with either of those characters at the current moment. Whether it will come back at some point,
right?
I don't know. We haven't seen the rest of the season. We haven't seen the scripts, but that's not the way the story is heading at the current time.
I bet it does. At some point, once they sort of darkness is entering Riverdale, I feel like they will be put together as the near miss that we saw in this episode down the line eventually. I think it'd be crazy if the show didn't revisit Bughead in some way, just even to, like, talk about it. We want to at least see a scene between Jughead and Betty, like, giving us the final word on their feelings. Or as Betty goes off to be with Archie.
Yeah, I also would love a scene where, Jughead apologizes for, maybe some of his horrible drunken behavior and stuff.
If that happened in the current timeline, which may or may not be true.
Yeah. All right, why don't we move on, though, because there's a lot of other things that we do need to talk about here. Let's start off with the big murder plot that's back this episode officially. We got murder in Riverdale. Jughead starts off saying nothing like this has ever happened in Riverdale. Little correction. Yes, it has, Jughead. Okay, a couple of times.
Wow.
But what we find out here is that Ethel says that the milkman or a milkman killed her parents over the course of the episode. They interrogate the milkman, who's a 7-year-old sweetie, and he clearly
nice. They let him sleep in for interrogating him.
Yes, Ethel stays over at the Cooper house. That's where she's staying. She is distraught about all this. As we mentioned, Jughead tries to help her out as much as he possibly can by hiding evidence. He gets in trouble for that. And then by the end of the episode, they actually discover the evidence, and they're in very big trouble.
But I do like that move of like, oh, if you're a possible serial killer, you should stay in the Cooper's house where the serial killers stay and hang out.
Well, they don't know that yet. But I also thought it was funny when they're like, Jughead, child, we searched the train car that you live in, and, well, we found some scary evidence. It's like, aren't there some other things you might want to investigate? No parents, a dog who is his buddy, train car, living in a train car? Living in a train car, this man.
Yeah, that's not important. Everybody knows about that. Just to re-emphasize, we talked about this in the last podcast, but I think it's even clearer this episode that they are heading to a version of what they did with Satanic Panic in season 3 with Griffins and Gargoyles. Here with the Comics Code Authority, we're getting a whole panic over comic books and horror in comic books. It just came out. Yeah, and milk, one of the most horrible substances known to man.
Hey.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh, milk protector in the house as well.
That's right.
Well, Pete, you're wearing a lot of hats, including one of a milkman, apparently.
Yes. So we're definitely getting that, and I don't think it's going to be straightforward in terms of like, we're just banning comics so much as it will go wildly off the rails as Riverdale always does. At least I hope it does. That's what I like about Riverdale.
Do you think they're worried about Jughead getting away, they put handcuffs on his train wheels over his house? Because he could just get out of there. Toot.
Yeah, he could drive it to safety, and then we're all like,
next stop, Greendale
hobo season. Here's my big theory that I mentioned before, and I think they're like either really tipping their hand or we're sending us in the wrong direction here. Alice and Hal. So we mentioned this the last episode, and I talked about how Alice told Kevin that she and Hal got pinned, and that stifled any urges they had. So we're talking about, what does that mean? Hal is a serial killer in the current time period. Does that mean that? Does that mean that Hal is gay in this time period? We don't know. This episode, we get Alice and Hal, when we cut into them on Ethel coming back, the song that's playing on the radio is Milkman, Keep Those Bottles Quiet. And Hal's reading the paper, Alice is doing noodle point, and they basically have this very weird conversation where they talk about sending Ethel away, and they're going to take care of it. Earlier on in the episode, Alice and Hal's like, why would you bring her here? What are you doing? And Alice is like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. It's the right thing to do. We know, whatever you think about it, Alice has these serial killer genes. I think there's a pretty good chance that Alice and Hal are a pair of married serial killers, and that's what we're getting here.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Bonnie and Clyde was my first thought seeing their scenes here, and like them working together. Maybe even we're going to see a shot of Alice in the milkman outfit is my guess. But then working together is a formidable killing team, because he was like, why'd you bring her here? And she's like, no, we have to make sure that she doesn't know that we did it. So let's have her live here for a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll definitely see. I mean, I think Alice fans will probably not be very happy about that if that happens, but I do think plot-wise that probably is where we're headed, but we'll see. There's always twists and turns and swerves.
It could always be erased when they go into the future somehow. So this may just be like a Riverdale kind of thing where this is...
Also, let's be honest, most of them are serial killers on this show, so it's kind of fine.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed in Jughead as a comic book nerd not remembering the Milkman arc of the comics that he's reading. I was like, come on, bro. Like, it's on the covers. I can clearly see it on the floor. Like, you got to have a little bit better recall. But
how was his bagging and boarding, Pete?
I haven't seen any of it, so a little disappointed in any of him as a comic book nerd. But I appreciate his passion. It was such a fun kind of like the way they structured this show of like putting this kind of arc in comics and then wondering if Ethel, who likes comics, is mimicking, what she sees in the comics, as far as like just making up an alibi, because she did it, or if she's like a copy of that. So I thought that was a cool kind of like structure that they built.
Copycat killer, you're saying?
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. One other theory I'll throw out at you. If it does turn out to be Alice and Hal, I wonder if they're doing it to do like no, not In Cold Blood, whatever the Nicole Kidman movie is that I'm forgetting the name of, where she murders somebody and then covers it.
It's in something.
Yeah.
3 words.
But whatever it is, I wonder, since they are hosting the show and they've talked a lot about like not losing that spot, if they have a bunch of murders happening, that gives them a good thing to cover on the news, potentially. So we'll see.
They're doing it to make news, you think?
Yeah, potentially. I don't know.
Hilarious.
See what happens. We'll see what happens. We're just throwing stuff out here. Having fun. We're having a good time.
Is it To Die For, perhaps?
To Die For. That's what I was thinking of. Yes.
So do either of you guys think Ethel, because it seems like you guys are real quick to put it on the parents where you think Ethel is innocent?
Yes.
I do think there's an argument to be made for Ethel doing it, considering that every time Ethel's been involved in a storyline, we've been like, I don't think Ethel's done it. And then she's done it.
Always done it. Yeah.
So possibly. I am still liking Ethel and Jughead, or more specifically Cole Sprouse and Shannon Purser, are really good together. Like they bring out good stuff in each other acting wise. So I hope Ethel didn't do it. Like
F-head.
Yeah.
You're into F-head? A couple of F-heads over
I'm a
there?
total F-head.
Oh, boy.
Me too.
Great. Why don't we talk about some other stuff, since there are other storylines here?
Well, there's sort of one superstructure for the rest of this episode, which I really liked. Like, murder stuff aside and some of the Dr. Werthers stuff, Featherhead stuff, the rest of it feels like it is like a sex education PSA. Like we get some cut-in footage of like bees and flowers. We get a lot of these like sort of trippy dream sequences and whatnot. It feels like a cheesy movie or film strip or something that you would watch in school from like decades before they had any understanding of how kids think about sex.
And Archie's line of like, I just don't get it. What do bees and flowers have to do? It was just such a funny moment.
He's playing.
I mean, Archie is crushing it. Alex, you're saying the same thing.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing. Like he's such a bonehead teen.
Boner. He's a human boner.
Yes.
That's what we're seeing here.
It's great. It's so funny in the way that he's playing it. Like, I think everybody's kind of hitting a little bit different notes in terms of playing a teen, and that's fine. But the way that KJ Apa is playing it is just like, oh, gee whiz. Oh, man. What a bummer. He doesn't know what's going on, which ties into the big thing we need to talk about at the end of the episode that happens that's very upsetting, but whatever, we'll get there when we get there. So, everybody's obsessed with sex. They have a sex education class. And like I mentioned, Veronica ultimately has this makeout party. But a lot of stuff happens along the way. As we're working through the episode here, let's talk about, should we talk about the Cheryl stuff? Should we get that out of the way?
Yeah, let's do it.
So there's this great scene where Penelope first sees that Cheryl is painting sexy ladies and gets very upset about it. And it cuts to the shot of Cheryl scraping pits out of a very vaginal papaya, I believe it was.
Well, and let me throw out there, everyone's like, what is Cheryl painting? What does she mean by it? And then you see the picture and it's like a naked woman with like a couple of suds over her breast. You're like, oh, yeah, I see what you're thinking.
So
Funny.
Penelope tells Julian, you have to introduce Cheryl to a boy. That's what you need to do. And ultimately, Julian kind of tricks Archie into dating Cheryl or asking Cheryl out on a date.
I believe he says, you don't think my sister's a honey? Which is a weird thing to say in any capacity.
Yes, absolutely. Blossom's super weird, but he also essentially implies that Cheryl is very easy because she's been with college boys, which intrigues the extremely horny Archie. And again, disrespectfully, I think in this case. So he eventually asks her out and asks her to go to see the 7-Year Itch. Instead, Toni has just invited Cheryl to the dark room. Cheryl says she wants to go to the dark room instead. Everybody ends up in the dark room. While there, Toni does a sexy dance to some beat poetry, and Cheryl orgasms and gets very upset about it and runs out with Archie, kisses him at her door, gets very upset about that because that's not who she wants to be kissing. And then ultimately at the makeout party takes Archie. Well, first they come out as a couple at school, which affects a bunch of different people in a bunch of different ways.
Betty.
And then Betty, Veronica as well, which drives her on to do this whole makeout party thing and go after Archie hardcore. At the makeout party, again, following Cheryl and Archie, eventually they break off, go to this room in front of a fire. Archie explains what's happening to Cheryl. She explains, no, she's actually never been with anybody, and says, you know what, I think we could figure this out. And as we get strongly implied and then seemingly confirmed in the last scene, she has a hickey, tells Penelope that they went all the way, they had sex, and now they're together.
One part I would like to bring up about the Cheryl part of the kind of show that I really enjoyed was them in the bathroom and Cheryl like storming out of the bathroom when Veronica's like, talking about Archie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was really, there's Cheryl does amazing entrances and exits and in the show, and really just great Cheryl stuff there.
I mean, great performance across the board, but the arc you just described that Cheryl has in this episode it's very upsetting. Yes. And you see like her at the center of just so many stressful competing things. Like she's upset about what her family's trying to push her into. She's struggling with her feelings and how to express them and to be public with them, which she seems like she truly cannot do. What to do about it. And she changes, just like Cheryl in the dealing with other things in the rest of this series. She can change on a dime. And so you see her do this multiple times. The saddest part to me was when she turns it on. She's like, kisses Archie because that's what she's like, I need to do this because I need to protect these feelings that I'm having. And also it'll get me out of the spotlight from Penelope. And then she walks in the door and starts crying. It was so well done, but just so upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, the Blossom House seems so stressful. I feel like the only escape is to live in the walls. It's just so much with that family.
Many have done it before.
So you
see how much when she turns the table on Penelope at the end of the episode, she enjoys that, and like it's like such a complicated situation.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I think KJ Apa and Madeline Petch do great work in this storyline. The minimal thing, which I'm less upset about, I think, but one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this is Archie clearly doesn't know. Like, he is naive. He's an innocent here in this situation. So he's heading for a place where he's like, wow, this beautiful girl, Cheryl, she likes me. Isn't that great? That hurts. That's sad. And it's very similar to, I think, the Kevin Betty situation where I feel bad for both of them all the time because they just don't know these things about each other. Like, they're not putting everything together in exactly the right way. But
I will say, just to interrupt, I feel less bad for Archie because he's sort of out there all the time and doesn't seem like it's dragging him. In terms of like his heart is going to get broken in some way, probably in the next episode. So that's a bummer. Sharchi is problematic for everyone.
That's a very short-term thing. And frankly, I've seen some people shipping Sharchi online. I want to get like a spray bottle like you do with cats and be like, no, don't do that. Stop. Anyway, yes,
Sharchi is no game.
Hey, let them get on whatever ship they want, man.
No. 100% not.
No,
disrespectfully, no. On Sharchi.
Wow. Even disrespect,
everybody. But yes, the much more upsetting thing to me is what happens with Cheryl, and I understand on a certain level the character of Cheryl Blossom is no moderation at all times. It just swings wildly from one place to another, and she goes wholeheartedly to everything. But the idea of I think my issue here is the way they play the second part of that scene in front of the fire where Cheryl throws Archie down and is like, oh, I think we can figure it out, which puts her too much into it for the way that they have been playing and plotting out everything before by making her the aggressor in this situation. And then the final scene with Penelope and Julian where she comes in and she flicks her hair and shows off the hickey. It's like, oh, we went all the way. It's played for comedy. And I guess that's fine.
Really? I thought it was played for spite. I thought it was played for spite. Like, this is something that she cultivated, and I think that's why I thought she is the aggressor toward Archie, because she wants to do this the next day, and she's planning her revenge on her mom.
Yes, and I understand that plot-wise, but I think it was the music in the background that's sort of like light and boppy that...
I agree, too. Like, I was like, oh, this is a little odd, but then when I see that she wanted to spring her trap on the family.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and again, I understand it from a plot direction, but I think that went too far for my taste. It made me very upset in a way where I was like... I understand this happens. I understand logically. Even today, there are people who are closeted and have sex with the person of the opposite sex because they don't want to believe the feelings that they're having inside. That is a thing that I don't just like in theory know that's happened, but I have multiple friends who went through these experiences and I've talked to them about it. So it is a thing that happens. But given that the journey we've seen Cheryl on, and even the journey in the first part of the episode where, like we talked about, I think makes emotional sense and straddles that line, it went too far over the line for me in that second half of the scene and that last scene. We'll see where it goes for next episode, certainly, and how they play with it. And Shodi is coming. Like, Sharchi is short term. We are going to get past this. There is going to be Shodi. It's going to happen 100%.
Let's hope so.
But it's hard to watch at the current time.
Well, I hear you. Would you rather have not seen that scene?
Or would
you rather have the scene of them hooking up, Sharchi?
I think...
Because I would say, think about it for a second, but I would say, like, the fact that we know that Toni has feelings for Cheryl and is pursuing them, and Cheryl, like, they're making eye contact. Cheryl has feelings for Toni. I feel like you see the truth there, and Cheryl just needs to, figure herself out enough to get there, and I think she will. But I don't know, like, that gives me a lot of, sort of stability and basis for moving through this relationship and all these things that she is, like, sort of in the middle of, to be like, oh, I know why she did what she did. So it doesn't make me feel like she's the victim the entire time.
Yeah, I think this is such a ridiculous thing, and I know whatever, it's a lie, but they're teens, and losing your virginity means something. So I think if we find out the next episode that Archie just gave her a hickey, I might feel a little better about this, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah. And that's all. That's sort of what I think that is what we're going to find out. But you never know. The implication was certainly that it was more than that.
Yes, absolutely. We will certainly see what happens. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it hurts to think about. Let's move to some other plot lines and talk about them.
Dr. Shoney is here.
Yeah. Again, everybody's playing it very well. On the Toni Topaz end of things, I love all the stuff that's going on with Toni, too, just to talk about that part of it. Her scene with the Rizzo figure, who they're calling Lizzo.
Lizzo. I was like, wow, Lizzo's a real Rizzo.
Yes, ridiculous. But that's the part where I'm talking about where, like, I don't know if Toni's parading around saying, hey, I'm bisexual to everybody, because I don't even know, if these teens in Riverdale necessarily know to use those words, but she's clearly out with the people in the Pretty Poisons, or Serpents, in their gang, and with Lizzo at the very least. So I like that. I like her talking to Veronica later on and being like, I'm playing the long game, don't want to say with who yet. Toni, to me... And sorry, I'll turn it over to you then, Justin, for what you wanted to say. But Toni, to me, particularly throughout this episode, but in these first 3 episodes, feels to be like the most clear on who she is character.
That's what I was going to say. It's like she just, like, I don't know if they are using identifiers like bisexual, but she's just like, I'm who I am and I want what I want, and that's it. Like, in the fact that she goes, it feels the confidence in the dark room to do like a very sexual dance. We don't do song and dance numbers anymore. It's just like sex poems in Riverdale is the hot performance technique. Great. So like,
Sweeping
I don't know.
nation.
It was, yeah, I know. I loved your sex poem that we had.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Really.
By the way,
well
you have
done.
it written down somewhere. You can do it at the end of the episode, right?
Nope.
Yeah, that was
maybe
for
next
us, Alex.
episode. Then you go look for it and you can.
Well, we're all going to drop our sex poems, of course.
Absolutely. Next episode,
over the course
we'll do
of
our
the
sex
season.
poem.
It's more of a performance. Just reading the poem doesn't really, you know what I mean? It's like a whole.
And let me say, I agree with you, Pete.
Speaking of performance, did you feel at all like Betty was into it? Like I felt like there was hints of the way.
Def.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, I think that it was just a great. Everyone was like, "That is sex." And it that is what inspires the entire town to have sex dreams. Toni does a poem, and everyone in town is having sex dreams. That's what I'm saying. Like it goes beyond sexual preference, sexuality. It was like, yo, that's some sex up there, and then it happens for everybody.
Yeah, particularly after Clay's poem, which I think we can agree was not very good.
Not great. No.
Not great. But Kevin likes it. Kevin loves it. And then
Kevin was moved by it. And, first off, how dare you guys? Clay's out there putting it out there, so for you to judge him like that is a little painful. But I do think that...
I'm just glad he went before Toni, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was the correct order for the poem.
You got to have the closer doing it. But I think, though, that, like... Toni this season, it's great to kind of see her as a kind of a stronger character and not like we don't know what her deal is or how she feels. It's great to kind of have this more mature person, around these kids who's kind of like, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know how I feel. So it's a great kind of beacon for others. So, I'm excited for more from Toni and eventually leading to Shoni.
Yeah. And eventually, there too exempt. It comes to Shoni.
I just wanted to mention, I think I wrote down the line wrong, but after Clay does his poem and Betty's like, what was that? The Kevin's line, like, it's art, Betty. It doesn't need to mean anything. Was very.
It doesn't have to rhyme or whatever.
Oh, no. Archie is very obsessed with rhyme scheme. Also a hilarious running bit that I hope keeps going all season long.
It didn't even rhyme.
100%. I mean, if Clay came out and popped his collar, Kevin would be like, that was art.
Yeah.
Like there's no.
Well, let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the Clay Kevin thing because over the course. What were you going to say, Pete?
I was going to say, I also would, Clay could just walk out there and pop a collar and people would be like, wow, because that guy's got
100%.
something. And Kevin knows it and he's not the only one. All right. Because he's also aware of himself and what he wants. And I'm, hoping that Kevin will realize that and then,
Yeah, real talent guy. Well, I mean, just let's break down the sex dream, and then we can talk Clavin. But you got Archie dreaming about Cheryl, Veronica dreaming Archie, Cheryl dreaming Toni, Kevin dreaming
first.
Clay.
Veronica is dreaming about Julian.
Right,
Julian is the first one.
Those redheads, it's hard to keep
it's hard to tell them apart.
Betty dreaming Archie, and everyone's wearing some very chill underwear the entire time.
Yes. I loved the way that whole sequence was filmed. I thought it was so good. The music in particular this episode, other than the music cue I talked about that I didn't love, I thought was great. Like there was that sort of beat poem 50s 60s type riff on the Riverdale theme that was happening in the background that I thought was so much fun during this jungle sex sequence that everybody was happening. It was it was like the Riverdale theme but on flutes that they were playing. So much fun.
Very sexual instrument. Did you guys have a day in town where everyone all had a sex dream when you were growing up?
Yeah, several days actually. Every day we'd be like, see you in the sex dream.
Wow. Like hello neighbor kind of a thing? Wow.
Yeah. Okay, neighbor. Bye. So
just
let's
4th of July in my town.
I think, though, to get back to like what is the story that they're telling right now in terms of relationships, I think it's kind of important to look at the order of the way that things happen. Archie's dreaming about Cheryl, like you said. Then we have Veronica and Julian, which I don't know. She's just thinking about it or whatever. Betty and Kevin. Then Veronica and Archie, while Cheryl watches, which is from Veronica's dream, which starts to heat things up. Then Cheryl and Toni, which heats things up a lot. Then we get sort of like this forbidden tone comes in. Kevin sees Clay and Clay sees Kevin, and they start kissing. And then the big one that they end with is Betty and Archie, which has this whole rev up where she's like walking straight towards him. And mind you, this is Betty's dream, not Archie's dream. They're not actually having a group dream.
Sorry, it's also my dream. Just let me just jump in there. Right. Just to say it is Betty's dream, but it's a lot of people's dream.
Right. Nope. Yes, absolutely. But I think this, among many other reasons, points to the story that they are telling right now, relationship-wise, even though there is a lot of Varchie in this episode, and I don't think Varchie is done necessarily by any means, is Barchie. Like, that is what we are heading towards at the current time.
Yeah, that's not to say that that's like necessarily endgame, but it is endgame, but it doesn't have to be, but it is. This episode really guides it there. The scene in the bedroom where Archie literally gets an erection, covers it with a stuffed animal from the bed, and then runs out of the room was wild. And he obviously the circumstances are different, but when he kisses Veronica, it's not that.
Wait, do you mean later at the kissing party?
At the party, yeah.
Well, I think what we've got here is Veronica isn't letting go of Archie. Clearly she hates Julian. And Veronica, I do think Archie's interested in Veronica. What? There's the whole line when they're sitting in the lounge.
He's got her gum.
Well, he's got her gum, but earlier when they're sitting in the lounge or they're talking about the makeout party, there's this narration from Jughead where he's like, that's where, I don't know. He says some line about like, that's where Veronica got Archie. And you can see the way that Archie's looking for Veronica. So I do think clearly he's catching feelings with Betty. Clearly we're going to end up with Barchie at some point. But he's already said, it feels like lightning when I look at Veronica. In the lounge of this episode, he has the whole like, whoop, he's a flower opening, she's a bee type thing going on. Plus he has whatever he thinks is going on with Cheryl. So Archie is this classic comic book Archie who's like, who's this person? I love this person. This is great. And he's not necessarily keeping his options open so much as he wants all of these people in different ways, and some of them he just may not know it yet, like Betty.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he's going to know it.
I feel like what I would like to have happen is, he maybe has a fling with Betty and they both realize like, oh, this is kind of like brother, sister. This feels weird, and walks away like they've done in the show numerous times.
I don't know if you watched this episode really well, Pete. There wasn't a lot of brother, sister.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you've been watching Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. That stuff is fine now.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. Anyways,
Pete, were you just doing a flute? Because that is a very sexual instrument.
They did go a little White Lotus now that I think
it was. Yeah. No, Pete was doing the White Lotus.
Anyways, I would like to talk about Jughead and Veronica had a nice...
that's what I was going to say as well. They had a nice connect, which I thought was really sweet. I don't know if anything will come of it, but...
we've seen in the promo, I think we could talk about this because it was in the trailer for the season, we see them kissing on a couch. So unless they've cut that in some way, that seems like the beginning of it. And I know you guys are not Gossip Girl guys, but I immediately got, I'll say this for anybody who does know, Dan Blair vibes, which is one of the best ships in Gossip Girl history that they completely went away from. And it was very annoying, but it was the same sort of thing where it was like, the rich girl who was always mean to him and the smart outsider, and they got together. There's something about it that just totally worked. Like,
great. Let me know when we're talking about this show again.
We're talking about the show again because Jughead and
You're
Veronica,
talking about some other show.
I love them bonding over monster movies, finding even ground. Veronica is clearly in a place where she's learning a lot of lessons about, like, I can't act the way that I did in Hollywood. Jughead is this outsider who lives in a train car who is ending up with the cool kids and doesn't know what's going on. I love them finding even ground, and I love the fact that we spent, other than that one kiss and one kiss when they were the margarita pool thing, and I think like season 1 maybe.
Yeah, and that was very much like we should kiss because everyone else is. Or something.
Yeah, exactly. And then the one time they teamed up on a mystery in the noir episode, you don't get to see them together, and the fact that they're taking this opportunity in the final season to be like, I don't know. Let's try Veronica and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm excited to follow this. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah. I love that Adam Sandler song, the Veronica song.
Veronica. Oh my God. Pete, you want to sing a verse? Veronica.
Nope.
It'd be too sexual. Too sexy if Pete did it.
Yeah. What else should we talk about in this episode? I'm sure we've skipped a lot of different stuff.
I like the moment where Betty kind of like throws the book at Kevin and is like, "Read it."
Oh, it's great.
He's like, "You can't
Betty,
have this in school," and him just kind of like freaking out like that was just like kind of embarrassment and being like, "Oh my God," was a fun moment.
Well, one thing we should talk about in relation to that is the Clavin scene where Clay says he comes out to Kevin and says like, "Look, here's who I am," and I think and Kevin can't do it, obviously. Pats him on the chest though in sort of a way that is sort of like, "I hear you." I really like that scene, and to give Clay that power to do that, I thought was really great, especially to Kevin, someone who, attraction or interest level aside, who has struggled with that now, obviously, but throughout the course of the whole series.
Well, let's talk timing on this, which is an impossible thing to do with Riverdale, but I want to do it anyway. We're clearly heading towards Clay and Kevin getting together. We're clearly heading towards Cheryl and Toni getting together. When do you think that's going to happen? Like, what is your guess at this point?
How many episodes do we get in this last season?
20 episodes total. We're on episode 3 deep. Yes.
Well, I think it depends. There's a big factor that is hard to predict. Like when we break from the 50s and go into present day, will everyone have their memories? What will change for them? Because I do think everyone's going to at least connect in the 50s, and I don't know how that will translate going forward. Like I think we're going to get everyone.
We're going to be in the 50s for at least 11 episodes at this point, potentially more than that. I don't remember the exact count, but it's definitely going to be. Oh, I think it's even up to like 13 or something.
What I'm worried about is we're going to get this amazing Clavin moment, and then boom, present day, and we're going to be like, no!
And Clay's going to melt because he was only part of the 1950s, and he'll just start screaming, and it'll be a bubble.
Yeah.
I think here's what my prediction. I think next episode we're going to wrap up this whole Sharchi thing. It's going to go spin wildly out of control. In the 5th episode, which I'm very excited about, we're going to get an anthology episode where Jughead's going to write a bunch of horror stories that are going to be published in comics. So we saw some stuff in the trailer where like Betty's spraying some hairspray and seemingly has a seizure off of that. There's one thing where it looks like Archie's being cut up with a buzzsaw. So I think we're going to get that stuff in those horror stories. So my guess is we're sort of going to get a little break there, and then things are really going to get rolling, particularly with most of these couples. I think we're going to see Shoni first, frankly, because they know how to write that, and they know how to work that. And once we get past the Sharchi thing, I hope at least part of that is Cheryl starting to realize this thing that we as viewers all know about herself.
It's interesting. I feel like that's going to take, that to me feels like it's going to take a little longer, and maybe is sort of the later thing that will happen. I feel like Clavin's sort of closer from maybe not being public with it, but they're going to start having some sort of affair perhaps, or something like that. Because I don't think Kevin is going to be able to talk to Betty for a while, but they feel the closest to like actually just being together.
So you feel like Clavin episode 6 or 7, Shoni, they're going to hold off on it.
That's my predict.
Yeah. I'm hoping we're going to get Clavin in like 2 episodes, and maybe on the 3rd one we get a beautiful kiss. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I hope there is a beautiful kiss.
I like a beautiful kiss.
Look at this lady, and it's a tramp, a kissing with the meatball.
That would be great. And I also do think that Barchi is coming sooner rather than later, frankly.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because once you get Clavin, Barchi's right around the corner.
And I also think just plot-wise, if we start to lean into the whole Veronica of it, that takes Veronica off the table for Archie. And if Cheryl is also off the table, which I pray to God she is, every night I pray to God that Cheryl will be off of the table for Archie. Cheryl's not going to be there. Veronica's not going to be there. That's going to leave Betty. If Kevin and Clay get together and Betty does not have sex with Kevin, which we assume is not going to happen, I think she's going to get frustrated enough to do something.
Yeah, based on this episode, Betty's horniness level, she's going to jump through the window, Matrix style, into Archie's bedroom. It's very strong.
Yes.
Archie is very strong.
Yes, Barchi is very strong, and Betty is strongest one there is.
100%.
A couple of other lines. There were so many great lines in this episode, I thought. We already talked about the I'm so confused, what do flowers and bees have to do with us? That was very fun. How peachy keen for you. Archie coming in and seeing Cheryl painting and going, his delivery on cool painting was very funny. The exchange between Toni and Cheryl, what is it, Serpentina? And
that was
with, I thought it might razz your berries. Just all the 50s language, too, is very fun.
Yeah.
You just hit the jackpot holding Caulfield. Great.
Yeah.
Like very Mary Jane to Spider-Man line.
Yeah.
But, and just everybody being, like, sharp on it. Like, everyone's character game is really strong right now. Like, it's really good. I love how no one wanted to see the 7-year itch. Everyone was trying to get to this.
Also, it was weird that they didn't just say the movies. They were like so specific. Like, there's only one movie showing, and we call it by its full name. We're talking about going to see the 7-year itch.
The 7-year itch is about.
What do they have to say? First of all, like, it's the
I'm
1950s.
going to the movies. Oh, let's go to the movies. You don't say the
first of all,
is that what you say?
Yeah, let's go to the movies.
No, you go to a movie.
Hey, you want to go see SY?
No, that way, if you get there with a group of people and they have different things, everybody can go see their movie.
Not in the 1950s. It's a small town with a one-screen movie theater. That's all they've got.
Also, Pete, no one does what you just said. Everyone goes to the movies together, and they watch a movie together. No one goes to the movie theater together, says hello, and goes off to another
They should.
movie theater.
It's a very advanced way of being.
The reason they said 7-year itch, because that's a movie about people who are dying to have sex outside of their marriages. Yeah. So, like, that's sort of what we're doing here. And it was great. Great choice, funny choice. No one went to see it because they went to the sex poetry.
Speaking of which, we haven't talked about the absolute weirdest thing about this 1950s timeline. The fact that the dark room, which used to be the White Worm, is now no longer connected to Pops, and in fact an entirely different location that you enter from above the ground from, like, an alleyway. Did you see that? That was weird.
That is weird, but we don't know if that alleyway is somehow connected to Pops.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Pops
You
could be
gotta
around
think
the corner.
about.
Exactly.
You gotta think about how Pops is somehow there. But weirdly, we've spent the least amount of time in any season of Riverdale in Pops, the 1950s style diner. It's insane. Why we are not in the diner? This is the time when the diner makes the most sense.
I did like Jughead's line of, like, who has time for dating with all the comics to read. That was
I think it was
nice.
Comics to read, hamburgers to eat, and movies to watch, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
I just
That's your
heard
life,
comics.
Pete.
Yeah.
Did you feel seen in that moment?
I did, yes.
Shouts to not double bubble, but triple bubble, that the gum, Veronica's gum that Archie ends up with.
Yeah.
And just to say, like, the Archie and Betty scene reading the sex book, too hot to handle, just wild. The way that they brought, like, young, like, when you're a teen and you're, like, just want to be with the person you're attracted to, the way they infused this entire episode with that energy was just really well done.
Great stuff. Before we wrap up here, let's talk about the MVP of the episode. Pete, who was your MVP?
Well, you got to go Lizzo on this. No, I think I'm going to give it to Veronica on this. I like to see a character go through some growth, to make changes, to try to be a better person. So I'm here for it, and it's exciting to see.
Betty all day, every day. Great Betty episode. Getting to Barchi. I like Pete called it, when she slams the book into Kevin's chest. She's like, read it! It's great. Just love them. Great moments throughout.
I'm going to give it up to Cheryl. I think, like we talked about, the absolute best, most emotional moment in the episode was her turning and crying behind that door after she kissed Archie. Loved
Also,
what
Ethel was great, too.
Ethel's great as well. Everybody is like
Everyone's
playing
great.
at the top of their game, honestly, right now. So it's really hard to choose. I'm really enjoying this season so far. I think they're doing a really good job.
I hope we get more Lizzo.
Yeah, I'm sure she's going to be back, and I'm sure she's going to perform some cool numbers with Grogu. I don't know what's going on.
Hey!
All shows at once,
shout
please.
out. Yeah.
If you would like to support this podcast and all the podcasts we do, patreon.com/comic book club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Riverdale. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Riverdale Dark on Twitter, Riverdale After on Instagram, Riverdale After Dark on Facebook, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, we'll see you after dark.
Please welcome to the After Dark Room stage, the king of the sexual haiku, Mr. Pila Page.